Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Quantumly Yours, my podcast, Wendie Patrick, through Finessium Health is my company, and finessiumhealth.com is where you will find me on the big interweb and on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can watch if you like rather than listening on YouTube under the Dogs of Pride channel. Uh, Welcome again. I'm blown away by how many people are actually now watching or listening to me around the world, and it's very encouraging. And I thank you so much because I just do this as my endless rants continue, hoping to educate, hoping to give you some insight and things that you can do to help your animals and yourself even better as you get older and grow up and whatever. I might say mature, yeah, in a broad sense of the term. But either way, I'm very, very happy to have you, as this is just all for free and I don't monetize this or anything else. So certainly if you do actually purchase any of our products online or shop with us or have done or one of our clients where we do any of our complementary therapies with, huge gratitude going out to all of you. So today I am going to touch on that subject that I have been following and looking into and learning, educating myself, testing, and that is on ingredients for the past 20 years. Ingredients specifically in our pet grooming products. And that's from sprays to shampoos to topical gels, creams, balms, you name it. And it was through a very long process, meeting a lot of really great people along the way who made me strive to do even more and even better than what I have done before. So, any of you who have known me from a while ago, you have always known that I have ranted on about safe ingredients and things like that, and I've wondered, well, you're just all ranting this, that, and the other thing. Well, it's kind of interesting because on my recent reflection on this, and also with the move across the pond from Canada back to the UK, it's interesting to see how many more substances or ingredients, chemicals, are banned or restricted in the EU compared to the likes of Canada and the US. And it's absolutely astounding. You can just do a wee Google search on this yourself and find out. But the minimum that I found out that ingredients in the EU are either banned or restricted, the top number that I found was 13,000 ingredients. Now, a little bit more sort of, I don't know whether it's more relative or what that number came from, to be perfectly honest. But another one that I found in looking through things and digging a bit further, where there was 1,700. So even 1,700 products or ingredients, not actual final products, but the actual ingredients that go into the product, 1,700 say are banned or restricted in the EU. Compare that to Canada, and Canada has about 500, considerably less. And the US, even with its Prop 65 in California, the bill and everything else, there are only 11 banned ingredients in cosmetics. And that's cosmetics as a whole. That's not even touching on pet products. The thing with that is because they're going on pets, they're not recognized the same as personal care. But here's the thing. Aren't we the ones putting these products onto our animals? The answer is yes. So even if you have what we know as a skin barrier deficiency, which is as simple as a paper cut, that is an absolute entry point for anything to go straight into your bloodstream. Imagine if you're bathing your dog in something that was maybe formulated in the early 80s, let's say. I mean, that's a long time ago now. Some of you listening may not even have been born then, but they're using the same ingredients, they're using the same formulations. And unless they've actually come up to speed and actually increased or they're improved on their productivity, improved on their own research, they're doing what they've been doing because it's been doing fine for them, and that's all right. But is that all right for you or me or our animals? Well, my answer is no. No, it's not. So let's look at how you would buy a product. So you're going along, dogs got itchy skin, for example. Maybe that's a bad example. Maybe you just have sort of flaky dandruff, or it's stinky, or just generally dirty, and you want to have a dog shampoo, Seems fairly harmless, seems fairly simple. So what do? You go into your pet store, you have a look around the shelves, and you see one that has maybe 20 different products. You go, ooh, they've got lots of products. They must be really good. And maybe that's your choice. Maybe you go to something else that's got a smaller line, like for ours, for example, and there's maybe 2 or 3 products there, but there's many possible uses or applications for that one product rather than having to buy 5 or 6 to do the same thing. So you choose that way. Maybe you look for certain marketing things. Maybe you look for the leaping bunny, which is animal free or animal cruelty testing, not animal cruelty testing. Sorry, I was just, if you're watching me, I was nudging the dog because he's scratching, if you can hear him in the background. Yeah, is he skin? No. But if you're looking at these products, maybe it's the marketing, you've seen it in an advertisement, maybe it's popped up on your social media feed, maybe you've seen it on TV, maybe you've seen it sitting in the background of something that you've been watching on TV. Very, very good way to do product placement on a show and actually get recognized. Influencers. I wouldn't exactly call myself an influencer, but certain ones who would actually be hired or paid to promote a certain product. So you have to kind of wonder, where did I hear about that? Where did I see about that? What do I know about that is more important. And go, is this what's directing? I mean, marketing is basically, because you're seeing it over and over again, it's in your face over and over again. And it's not exactly educational, it's brainwashing. It's once you see something that's familiar, then, so you think, therefore, it's safe. Oh, it's all over the place, so it must be really good. But you haven't seen what sort of ethics are behind that company, or for a fact, you haven't even picked up a bottle, turned it around, and tried to find an ingredient listing and then read it and understand it. So once we know that there's all of these things that basically are banned in the EU or restricted in the EU and aren't in North America, that makes it even more alarming to know the products that are available out there. And it's been good because I've always had that notion, desire to have safer products once I was educated on them myself and dug into things, looked up things, and even tried to find out information, which wasn't as easy 10 years ago, even as it is now. Even with the internet, there's more available now. I mean, AI, love it or hate it, when I'm doing researching on stuff, I like it because it can scan a whole lot more stuff a lot quicker than I can. And then whatever it's referring to, I can look in those directions as well if I want to dig a little bit deeper, which I usually do. So a lot of products that are there with the ingredients are certain foaming, thickening, stabilizing, preservatives. And the big thing that you can see now that you wouldn't have seen 20 years ago at all is that pretty much everything out there is showing itself off as being paraben free. But stop and think for a second. Yes, it's a good thing, by the way. But stop and think for a second. Did you ever see a marketing campaign on its own telling you why something is now paraben free? Well, parabens are endocrine disruptors. They build up in the system, so they're bioaccumulative. So your body can't get rid of it. So think of harsh products that you may be been using on even a show dog, for example, that's getting a very, very regular bathing or grooming routine. And anything that's going onto the skin can also go into the skin. I mean, the skin is the largest organ of the body, so we need to be careful about what we're putting on it. That even goes as far as our own face creams, hair products, skin products, moisturizers, hand creams, balms, aftershaves, shaving gels, toothpaste. That's in, I suppose. But looking at those things and going, well, what are we doing about what's parabens? What? So if you actually can look up, if you want to, or I can just tell you, which I'll probably just tell you anyway, because 9 times out of 10 you won't look it up. They did a study on breast cancer tumors. And this was I think it was the American Cancer Society or the Canadian Cancer Society. And this would have been around about 2014-ish. Forgive me, my dates are probably off, but it was a while ago, roughly about 10 years ago or so. And they found that whenever they tested breast cancer tumors, 97% of them contained parabens. So that's something which will tell you not only maybe are they cancer causing, but they're also maybe helping the cancer to grow if the cancer is coming from something else. But the fact that they're bioaccumulative and they actually like to reside in tumors, would they be in other parts of the body? Absolutely, because it just depends on your body and how things are going in or on or whatever. But anything going onto that skin is also going into that skin. That includes anything that's going onto your hair or onto your animal's hair is going into the skin, so into the bloodstream and being carried around the body to do whatever damage it feels necessary to do. So whenever you're thinking about getting rid of things or the advertising paraben free is almost like a standard now, but they're using it as a marketing thing. Oh my goodness. We don't very often have sirens going by. I don't know if you heard that or not, but away they went. Anywho, sorry about that. Whenever anything's going on to the skin, it's going into the skin, including onto the hair. The hair goes into the body or the head, the body of the animal, and the root is actually inside the body. It's that simple. The hair acts as a wick. So it will draw anything that's on the skin for any length of time and gets a chance to get into the cortex. It goes right down that because the cortex is like its own little root system right into the body. And if that hair is growing where it's deeply rooted, then it's going into the skin. Lots of people poo-pooed on this about 15 years ago whenever I was doing the first ingredient seminars and things like that, or promoting products who were also educating this. Actually, Pure Pause was a huge one show season before that because they've always been paraben free. But just going through after that and finding more things about the endocrine disruptors, the bioaccumulation. So the damage that some of these chemicals are doing to the body is actually endless. One that's interesting to me that I've found in the last couple of years from coming back home is the DEA and MEA. Now, there was an interesting question that had been brought to me quite a number of years ago about 1,4-dioxane. Now, 1,4-dioxane is cancer causing. There is no ifs, ands, questions, or anything about that. However, where does it come from and how is it produced and how can you avoid it? Because that's not going to be on any ingredient listing. So let's just take that one ingredient or that one chemical, and it's actually a byproduct. So it happens when certain things are processed, when certain things are actually then made from other things. And I'll elaborate on that. So 1,4-dioxane comes as a byproduct of mixing a fatty acid, and I had to write this down because it's a big long word, dithanolamine. Now, whether my pronunciation of that is correct or not, I have no idea. But if you follow that as hooked on phonics, you'll be able to spell it and you'll be able to recognize it if you see it on a label. So whenever fatty acid, now fatty acid, the most common one, and we'll see this a lot, is coconut. Coconut oil is a fatty acid. And whenever that is made, reacting the coconut oil with this dithanolamine, there is a presence or can be a presence of 1,4-dioxane. And whenever that happens, you actually find it coming through as an MEA or a DEA. So there's cocamide MEA, cocamide DEA, or lauramide DEA or MEA. Now, MEAs and DEAs, not both of them are banned in the EU. One is and one is restricted. And it's restricted to have no more than an ingredient content on a product of more than 5%. But how are you going to know that if you pick up something on a shelf? Frighteningly, going into pet stores as I do, it's like garden centers and pet stores. I can't pass either of them. And I love to peruse the grooming sections and have a look at some products, pick them up, turn them around, have a look at ingredients. And in the UK here, I'm absolutely astounded by how many pet grooming products are sitting on shelves and they're still showing DEA. And I'm like, okay, no one is testing these products. This is up to you to get educated, to know more, to look for more and what to look for. And I know you don't know any of this. I mean, a lot of you listening, this is all news to you, but you're never going to get this from a marketing campaign. You're never going to hear this from a salesperson in a store because 9 times out of 10, they haven't been educated on this either. Maybe the one person that I've spoken to in any of my retailers, they're not on duty that day and that information didn't get through to other ones. But if you're looking for those, stay away from them. Put that back on the shelf and look for something else that doesn't have an MEA, a DEA, any phthalates, any parabens. Silicones as well can be a bit off, but we'll get there. So the paraben thing as well was also a bit weird. Parabens, as we say, were bioaccumulative. And Canada had a certain restriction on them a little bit more than the US because they weren't allowing a certain percentage of parabens to be in a product that came across the border. However, then there was ingredient splitting. And what this is then, well, let's divide those parabens up as to whether they are propyl parabens, methyl parabens, isopropyl parabens. At the end of the day, if you added that up, it would still exceed the allowed amount of parabens in the product. So there's always devious things going on. So be very careful when you're reading marketing or looking at things that are being marketed as free from this, free from that, free from the other. Make sure you go to the ingredient listing and look at it and see, well, what actually is in there? Okay, so what's in that bottle? Most of it's water. We know that. So therefore, as well, there has to be a decent preservative. Now, parabens were preservatives. Now, the preservatives were always at the end of the label. So people never really knew about them or to look at them or anything else. But there was a huge smear campaign that came out in the 80s about SLS being cancer causing. Now, we've touched on that a little bit a minute ago on it. I'm coming into that now. But SLS itself as a finished ingredient has never actually been proven to be cancer causing. No, the background, so go before it becomes SLS. And there we have that making or that mixing of reacting your fatty acid or your coconut oil with your dithanolamine. Look, it's becoming easier to say every time I say it. I'll tell you how long I've been practicing that one before I came on. But that can produce that 1,4-dioxane, which is cancer causing. But you're usually going to find that if it's a higher heat or a faster processing method. So it's the difference between boiling something until it's absolutely nothing or slow cooking it until it's lovely and tender. If you're thinking of a food. Sorry, I always go back to food, don't I? So looking at that 1,4-dioxane is not going to show on a label. A lot of other ones are not going to show on labels. But knowing what possibly could be in there may give you a little bit more insight whenever you go to look at a label. Now, to confuse you even more, because you haven't been already, whenever we go and we look for something that's SLS free, those sneaky little manufacturers and their sneaky little marketing parts of their companies or whoever's generating the labels to go on in their ingredient listing, instead of putting on SLS, SLES, and SLS is sodium lauryl sulfate, so SLES, sodium laureth sulfate, which is gentler and which is what you would usually have found in the likes of your more baby shampoos or classed as hypoallergenic. But those are coconut-based surfactants. So let's just say, now I have no proof of this. This is just my own surmising and sort of my conspiratorial whatever. Forget about that, Wendie. Carry on. Twisting words, mixing words, tripping over myself at the minute. It's a passionate subject of mine. So I'm actually trying to keep myself quiet, calm, reserved, but get into the information. Okay. SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate. It is created by, you guessed it, reacting a fatty acid, which is coconut oil, with something else. Now, it's not always the same thing that it's being reacted with to create things, but if you see SLS in a product ingredient, you'll usually find an MEA or a DEA in there with it as well. And if you find any of those combinations, there is a slightly higher chance that 1,4-dioxane may have been present as a residual when that product was made. And this does go to cost. So your cheaper ingredients will have them. Your cheaper products sitting on the shelf, consider your price points. Just because you can say, well, I can just get a shampoo in the pound store, the dollar store for like $2 or $3 or £4. Yeah, okay, be very careful with that. I'm not saying it's not safe, but forewarned is forearmed. And just having a little bit more information or knowledge about that will make you hesitate perhaps a little bit more, a little bit longer, and end up being a little bit safer in the long run. So these clever companies that were having SLS and SLES, getting bad mouth, getting shamed, getting all the rest of it, they just reworded it. They didn't change their ingredients. They just reworded them. They greenwashed them. So to make you think that it's cleaner, it's healthier, it's safer, not necessarily so. They would just put on coconut-based surfactants. And a surfactant is a surface acting agent, which is what actually helps to move the product through the hair and coat and to actually get you part of the lather as well. So knowing things like that and how things are labeled, just be very, very aware because, as I say, it's on your skin, it's in your skin. And the same with your animals. We're finding animals dying of cancers. Where are they coming from? Lots of different areas for sure, but there's another area to think of that you probably haven't thought of before. So that's a little bit of food for thought. I mean, I can go into a lot more things with the likes of the silicones, give the hair slip. They're also an adsorber as opposed to an absorber. An adsorber sits on top of the skin or the coat, and an absorber goes into the coat or the hair. So whenever you have a silicone on a product, if you use that, it's going to build up and build up and build up and build up and build up, especially if you have a long-haired breed or a coat that you're trying to grow for show. You don't want silicones because if you're using those sprays as a grooming spray, it's going to build up on the coat and the skin. But especially for a longer coat, it's going to create breakage. You don't want that. You don't want that. So just be aware that they are not regulated. The only pet products or pet grooming products that would be considered regulated would be those that would have a medicated claim. And then they have to be authorized under the vet board to be allowed to make a claim because then they're considered drugs or medicinal. But most of your products out there that are sitting on your shelves, all range of prices, all range of fancy marketing, all range of hype. Lots of people just think about where you're hearing about these things from. Think about where you're seeing these things. And before you do anything, try and find an ingredient list. Go to the websites. They should be there. They should have full disclosure on them. They certainly have to if it's personal care. So if it's for something that's for a human, they have lots and lots of stipulations and hoops to jump through to actually be allowed to go on the shelf, especially in the EU and the UK. Not so much in North America. Germany is also strict as well, because obviously that's under the EU. And you just have to basically be more aware of what your sort of government agencies are or what your laws are on pet products. I don't think I've found a country yet that actually tests for pet care products. They'll test your food, obviously, but not for grooming. not for grooming products. So I'm very, very aware of that in the sense of how I make mine. I make mine to human grade quality, top, proper ingredients, safe lab testing results from all of my ingredients showing that there's no E. coli, salmonella, there's no residue of pesticides, heavy metals, um, no bacterias in there, or anything else it shouldn't be. Just a nice, clean, safely made quality ingredient. So some people might say, Wendy, I don't buy your products because they're too dear. Well, that's your choice. That's fine. But did you know all this before that? And that's not being boastful or anything else. It's being safer. Because I care about your animals more than probably the next person, and want to make sure that what's going in and on the body are equally as safe as what I would put in or on my own. Actually, more so because they don't have that choice of choosing their products. That's my job. So I make sure that everything is cleaner and safer. So you can too. Uh, Feel free to follow lots of my other videos, podcasts. As I say, older ones you'll find on YouTube channels. If you go on to the Older Dogs of Pride Facebook page as well and scroll back for, the last, 15, 16 years I've been on there, you'll find lots of different ramblings and rants and explanations. You'll also find breakdowns of each of my products as well on there as to how they're made, why they're made, what's in them, why is that in them. And of course, now with knowing how to do all the muscle testing, every product I use, every product I have is all muscle tested. All my ingredients as well, even from seeing all of the safety testing and everything from my suppliers, I'll also be doing safety testing as well with them when they get to me before they go into any mixes or any products. And our final product, like the smart oil, for example, which is also used topically, is also third party independently tested because there's so many different facets to that mixture and certainly different reactions and stuff that come from it. Synergistic blend. So yes, shampoo of ours, for example, is made for groomers. It's made for a professional quality. So whenever you buy a bottle of ours, you're actually getting 23 bottles for one, as opposed to a lot of these other ones. Yes, you're getting cheaper product, but you're also getting a cheaper product. And it's ready to use. You need half the bottle to get a good bath done with your dog, whereas mine may last you for 7, 8, 9, 10 of those or more, depending on the size of the dog, up to 23. So yes, look at these things. I'm not the best salesperson in the world for the sake of I make products that actually work. So therefore they last because you need less of them. So I don't see a huge repeat of sales. But whenever I do see repeat of sales, it's the same people coming back again and again and again. And that proves to me more than anything else that my product works, it's trusted, it's safe, it hasn't caused any nasty reactions. And that's really what we're looking for at the end of the day, safety. So now you know a little bit more information. Sorry for the long words. There's a lot more I could have thrown in there for you, but let's keep it simple, especially if you're just driving home listening to this. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you've enjoyed us again. Thank you once again, as always, for joining. And as always, we'll see you soon and stay possum.